Hi, welcome to the Haven Writers Guild podcast.
We invite you to join us as we explore the curious world of writing.
Okay, so today we are talking about success. Being a successful writer. What is success in writing?
Yes.
I suppose the first question is, do you feel that you're a successful writer?
Well, yeah. It is certainly something that seems to come up a lot. And I think it's just one of those really difficult to define things because it really comes back to how you define success.
Yeah.
I think there are days where I feel successful.
Okay.
Usually when I finish something or I'm really happy with the piece of writing that I've done that I feel works.
Yeah.
But were someone else to ask me, as you just did, if I think I am a successful writer, I'd probably instantly say no.
Yeah.
Because I haven't published anything. Well, nothing substantial.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of comes to that sort of goal of being published. Also, I think it's what ultimate goal you have as a writer. I mean, we talk a lot here about writers and writing, but I think most of what we're talking about is people who are aiming to be novelists.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are a lot of people who are journalists.
Yeah.
So they might feel successful when they've actually finished a piece they can publish into the paper.
Yeah.
But here we're talking about novels. So until we get to that point where we've actually published a novel, we may not feel successful.
That's right. And I think too, we gauge success by the reactions of other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And so, of course, when you tell someone you're a writer, the first thing they say is, oh, have you been published?
Yeah.
You know, so that is the measure that most people use to gauge how successful you are. So I just think, you know, there is personal success. But I guess one of the things that I've been thinking is that when you talk to, say, a dentist or a lawyer or a teacher or someone that, you know, they've gone to uni, they've done their study, they graduate, they get a job, they are, you know, now considered a success in their field.
Yep.
They've achieved their career and then they go on to, you know, to practice, whatever that is. But I think when you come to the creative arts, in whatever you choose to do in that, success becomes a little bit more haphazard and vague and difficult to define.
Well, it's interesting you put that, because I suppose if you're a teacher, what would you define as success? You know, because most of the times it's like with the writing, it's a project. You finish a project and there's a very definite middle, beginning and an end. So maybe if you're a teacher or something, you've got to, you know, I feel happy that I've finished the year or finished the semester or something. That's quite negative as well.
If someone says to you, oh, what do you do? And you go, oh, I'm a teacher. They go, oh, okay. They don't say,
yeah,
oh, well, what grades did your students achieve this year?
Yeah.
Or, you know, how did you go with your marking? You know, it's just, oh, that you're a teacher. Therefore, you know, that's what you do. You're doing it. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that I'm at all saying they don't work very, very hard to do what they do. But I mean, with writing, well, I'm talking about writing because that's what I do. But I think with any kind of art, the goalposts are always moving. You know, even if you get something published, you're instantly on to the next thing. And certainly for me, because I'm probably a poet more than I would say I'm a novelist. Mm-hmm. If I have a poem published, that's great.
Yeah.
Do I consider that then makes me successful? Not really.
No, that's right. So it's personal goals then. Is that right?
I think so. Well,
personal goals.
I think there's personal goals and yeah, how other people perceive. Although that probably shouldn't matter, but it does.
Yeah, well, I think for me it is definitely that aspect of finishing a novel. So for me, I've been trying to write a novel for many years and I've written a few, but I haven't actually completed them. I honestly don't even think it's really about getting them published. It's just about coming up with that complete product at the end where it's all edited. And obviously there's a point where one never feels satisfied with what one ends up with. But, you know, authors say they'd like to go back and edit until the end of time. But I think for me, I would just like to have that finished product. And when I've gotten that, I think I would feel successful. Or maybe I just feel, you know, incomplete for the rest of my life.
Well, I think it's for how long do you feel successful?
Yeah.
You know, and then it's, okay, I've got my manuscript, let's send it off. Is it accepted? Now I feel successful. Is it not accepted? Okay, well, what have I done wrong? Is it me? Is it them? Should I try again? Should I throw in the towel? You know, it's always changing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Will one feel successful after one has gotten out one's big book and got it published and everything? What happens next? And that's what I think you were getting at. I think you mentioned Elizabeth Gilbert.
Oh yeah, she has this brilliant TED talk about success and failure, and she was talking about after Eat, Pray, Love, how that was massively successful, knowing, following on from that whatever she wrote next was probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Because it was never going to be as good as, and it did fail in the end. But she was saying that basically, if you're doing what you do to achieve some sort of success, then the success becomes the reason for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you fail, it can be devastating. But her point was that failure or success can't be the reason that you do what you do. You've got to be doing it because you love it, because it fulfills you, and because it's home, you know?
Yeah, I suppose one does like to have a goal in mind, though. And when, you know, if you're doing what you love, but you've got a goal, you know, even if you're doing something as a hobby, most people have a goal in mind. You know, they're building towards something. So there is a finished date. You can't just do what you love doing, because there's usually a goal in mind, you know.
Absolutely. But how it's received, I suppose, shouldn't dissuade you from continuing to do what you love.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's that sort of other's opinion of what you're doing. If you're sort of basing everything on that, it can be, as you say with Elizabeth Gilbert, not a good thing, because, well, it's like J.K. Rowling when she finally finished Harry Potter, and then she came up with Casual Vacancy. Seems to be a lot of these big authors, they do a project after their big thing, and it's I think they call it like a cleansing draft. You know, you just get something out and then you can sort of move on with your life, which is very interesting. But I remember seeing, there was an Australian cyclist who was in the Olympics. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was in the final. He got around the final corner, and he was probably in bronze medal, and the people in front of him fell over and he got gold. So he got first.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was that he had to come to terms with, whenever he went out somewhere saying that he was a gold medalist, or someone introduced him as a gold medalist, they would always be like, oh yeah, but you know, everyone else fell over, sort of thing. So he'd earned it, he'd worked hard for it, and he'd gotten it, but other people just belittled what he had, and it took a long time to come to terms with that. Yeah. Which is, I think it's quite interesting. So have your own goals.
But that's the thing, though, I think, when you are working towards something, it's that balance between doing what you do because you love it, regardless of how it's received. But also, there is a part of you, I think, that is really doing what you're doing because you want it to be received well. You know, of course, we want to be thought well of and to be considered successful. It's another thing that Elizabeth Gilbert said is, you know, we have success and we have failure, and the world sees one as good and one as bad, whereas that really is not necessarily the case, because both outcomes can actually be really valuable and important.
Yeah, I suppose the one key thing to think about writing is, of all the lofty thoughts on it, it is a form of entertainment. So if someone isn't being entertained by it, if someone doesn't think highly of it, then there's not much reason for it, because we are actually trying to entertain people. So,
well, that's right. And the other thing too is we're also trying to eat.
Yes.
And, you know, as much as we can pursue what we're doing out of love, we have to be practical and try and actually somehow generate an income from what we're doing, unless we are, you know, working and then doing that as a side thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that ties in nicely with what we're going to talk about, the entrepreneurial writer. So a lot of writers these days have found it difficult to get into the publishing industry because there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of expectation, and they just can't get in. So what they've done is they've taken their work and gone online, and they've tried to create a different way of selling themselves, I guess, and marketing themselves. So they become an entity of themselves. Obviously in the first episode we talked about publishing and self-publishing, and the point you made about publishing is that when you send a manuscript to a publishing company, you're actually getting their opinion, saying this is okay. But when you're creating something for yourself as an entrepreneurial writer, you're sort of saying it's kind of nebulous as to whether it's good or not. You know, that whole aspect of success, is it successful, becomes a lot more nebulous, I think. So
yeah, and it's kind of ironic, really, because I think publishing has become so difficult, you know, and publishers more and more expect authors to come with an established platform and be their own marketers and that kind of thing. So writers everywhere have started doing their own marketing and maybe doing self-publishing and teaching others how to self-publish and teaching others how to be marketers and how to use Instagram and how to use social media and blah blah blah. And almost are making publishers become redundant.
Yeah.
You know, so we've kind of been pushed to that point of going, well, I'm doing this anyway, why don't I just do it all myself?
Yeah.
Especially when, like you said earlier, the middleman isn't entirely necessary anymore in order to make an income. But it does require writers to be a lot more versatile. And for myself, I know that I'm terrible at marketing and terrible at sales. So that's quite a difficult prospect for me. Whereas a friend of mine has recently, she was looking at the option of self-publishing and basically said, well, why can't I just be a publisher?
Yeah.
So she's actually started her own publishing house.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. And, you know, it does beg the question, I suppose, why not?
Yeah, I suppose the key thing within that is that where she is located, where we are located, there aren't many publishers.
That's true.
So it's not just, you know, I'm just going to, you know, make my own publishing company. She actually saw an area where there was a need, which I think is a very important part of what we're doing as writers, is we're sort of trying to create something.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we are writers, and we have the ability, we should have the ability to use that talent for lots of different areas.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got the written word can be used with the marketing, you know.
One of the things, though, that I can see happening is that there is a saturation happening of these entrepreneurial writers who are trying to be unique and offer something different and pay the bills so that they can pursue what they love, which is great because it's you know, it's making people explore what can be done, but it really is becoming incredibly competitive. And I don't think that's a healthy thing. I think what happens is, you know, you write something and somebody else writes something and they get published and you don't. It can be very much, well, why did they get published and I didn't? And am I wasting my time? Should I give up? But you can't. So you keep writing. And I don't think it's supposed to be one against the other. I mean, we're supposed to be encouraging each other and working together and, you know, spurring each other on to do what this is, which is really valuable work. Because there are so many voices that say, stop what you're doing. You're wasting your time. Do something else.
That said, writing is incredibly competitive. And as soon as someone else writes something, I'm like, am I better than them? Are they better than me?
Yeah, but I don't think it should be like that. I mean, I know it inherently is, but I would love to get to a point personally where if somebody else writes something good, I mean, any of the books that we grew up loving and reading and enjoying, they were written by our peers essentially because we've chosen to be in the same industry.
Yeah.
You know, so we could be writing alongside the next bestseller. We could be the next bestseller. You know, that's something that should be encouraged and celebrated, not and again it comes back to that idea of success and failure. Well, who's successful and who's not succeeding in what they're doing, which is just, I get that we need to be practical, but I do think this idea of success versus failure can be quite destructive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in terms of just backtracking to that point you're making, then yes, there are a lot of people doing things, but generally they're just doing the same kind of things. I think that's usually what happens. There's sort of like a niche in the market, people fill it, and the entrepreneurial writer, everyone, they fill it. Lots of self-publishing happens. So there's just sort of lots and lots of it, and then eventually someone finds a new niche, and sort of everyone moves on, sort of thing. So I think it all moves along. I think I think it's quite exciting. Yeah,
it is exciting. And I don't think the fact that everybody is doing the same thing, I know what you mean, but when you could say the same thing about writing. You know, we've got shelves and shelves and shelves of books and they're all doing the same thing, as in they're writing, you know, but everyone has a unique voice. And that's the reason that we don't need to be competitive, because you could sit a bunch of writers together in a room, have them all do something, and it would all be completely unique. And each one of those voices meets a need of a reader.
Yeah.
You know, I might love a certain voice and you might hate it. That doesn't mean that writer shouldn't have done it. It just, I think it supports what we're doing because we all have a voice that needs to be spoken. Yes, we should try and be the best at what we're doing, but I don't think we need to be in competition with somebody else because we're not all drones doing the same thing. You've got a smile on your face like I'm getting all idealistic here.
Idealistic.
It just makes me angry that I think this competitive thing and this idea of success and failure does actually stop a lot of people from doing what they love because it's not seen as socially acceptable or viable or profitable, or somebody else is doing it better. And I really think we need to cut that off and start to actually foster some support for people who are brave enough to do what they love.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I agree. I suppose it sort of depends on, you know, I mean, if you start something like, I love writing and I'd like to create a novel, and you sort of consider the sheer quantity of time and hours and editing and all that kind of stuff to create something at the end, and you think, well, okay, well, I'm going to do that and I want to get something out of it at the end. So you're heading towards that goal, and if you're not getting, you know, if it's not going to be a success, if it's, you know, it might help you back off. So I think sometimes it's a good thing. Maybe there is that kind of competitive edge, because some people at the end of the day, they just want to try writing out. They just want to try creating a novel and see how it goes. But maybe it's better if someone stops them at the starting mark and they go on to do something else. You know, if it's just a hobby, take up golf or something, you know.
Yeah. If you're defining why you're doing what you're doing as, you know, level of interest and level of commitment, then yes, there is that point where every writer has to go, is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? But I think that comes down to, if you know you want to be a writer, if it's just a hobby, I think that will happen naturally anyway.
Yeah.
If you're a writer, you can't walk away from that as much as you may want to.
Yeah.
It's something that possesses you and you must respond. And I suppose you could say that in itself is a form of success.
Yeah.
But in the world that we're in, that doesn't meet with a lot of approval, I suppose, that idea.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I suppose it teeters between, this is an artistic endeavour of, you know, higher proportions, and then there's the other side, which is, okay, this is a square book product that sells for such and such at such and such shops and is bought by so many people. So it's having that balance between the two of them, because, you know, I get a bit fed up with the higher artistic bit after a while. It's what I'm meant to be. It's like, well, I also just want to have a product at the end that I can, you know, give to people as well. So it's that balance. Let's face it.
It is a balance, but it's an important balance, because if you have this idea in mind of putting together a product and marketing it and selling it, that's really important, as long as you don't use that as the definition of your success. Because when that fails, which it inevitably will.
Will it though?
Well,
so it's a formula. I mean, if you can come up with a formula, a novel can be a formula. You know, you get the right characters, the right setting, touch on the right emotional notes, and you've got a book at the end.
Never. It's not. Don't even. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It doesn't work like that. No, it's not.
There are novels out there that, you know, that
you still have to labor over it and get the right words onto the page.
Yes, well, there is that.
And I think there is always a point where, regardless of whether your book is on a shelf or not, you have to have the resilience as a writer to believe in what you're doing and to know that it's worthwhile whether or not you succeed. Because then, no matter what happens, you're doing what you believe you should be doing. I think that is very important.
Okay. So you're going more for the higher purpose kind of thing.
I am. I mean, I think...
It's a higher calling.
Yes, because you said something, I can't remember when it was, about, you know, just the act of being committed to writing is success in itself.
Well, that's terribly profound of me.
It was.
Sure. Does it sound like me?
I think it was one of your blogs.
Okay. Which you edited.
Yes, but I didn't change your words.
Okay.
Because let's be realistic. When you choose to be an artist of any description, you will come up against opposition.
Yes.
There will be many voices that tell you it's not a real thing to do. It is just a hobby.
Yes. Which can be a good thing.
How can that be a good thing? It's incredibly demoralizing.
Well, I mean, if you really want to... Well, yes, no, there is that. but it also does, well, gentle warnings. I suppose there are. I mean, let's face it, we actually have been quite in a setting of general encouragement in terms of where we've studied.
Yes, that's true. Nonetheless,
so I can imagine the American book industry. I haven't actually sent a thing off yet and gotten those countless rejections yet. So I think I haven't gone there yet, because I think that would be incredibly demoralizing. But I think a certain amount of competition, a certain amount of rejection, actually, if you really want it, more satisfying when you actually finally get it.
Yes, but that's exactly what I'm saying. You must really want it.
Yes.
And you only know if you really want it when, in the face of failure, you still do what you're doing because you believe in it.
Yes.
That's my point.
That's a good point.
But I absolutely agree with you that failure is very important.
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain sense of safety in failure.
Yeah.
As strange as that might sound, I feel like with the novel that I've been working on for however many years, I'm almost reluctant to finish it because I haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah.
So you know,
I've got the same thing as well with my 3 novels.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to them. They've gone, but each one kind of not failed, but sort of got to the point where it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But there was a sort of a reassurance I didn't have to package that up and send it off.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
yeah.
Next project. Maybe we just enjoy starting novels and not actually finishing them. It's so depressing.
It is certainly safer to consider myself successful because I am pursuing what I love.
Yeah.
Than stand up in front of everybody and hear what their opinion is of how successful it truly is.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because I was talking to my dad the other day, and he's got this fantastic garden. It's absolutely beautiful, and he's laboured over it for many years now. But I said, this is a show garden. Why don't you get people to get it judged and everything? He said, no, I can't imagine having judges coming around and picking on this and picking on that and things like that. Just it's created something magical and wonderful. And I suppose that's why, sort of just bringing it back to the whole self-publishing / entrepreneurial thing, I really like the idea of creating something. Like at the moment, we're creating a radio play. So we're making a radio play and we're publishing it in December.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. It will happen anyway, because we're writing the script. It shall not go to waste. But we're creating all ourselves with the help of, obviously, actors to do the voice work, and we're making all the sounds ourselves. But we're going to create something at the end and send it out, and people can listen to it. And it hasn't gone through multiple levels of rejection and this is good, this is bad, you should change this and that. It's going to go out there. And I really like the idea of that, that sort of base level. We've created something, here it is, because that's the way our artists used to work, They sort of get commissioned, create something, they send it off.
Yeah.
It should be nice and simple.
Yeah, and I think too that success in the eyes of others is hollow anyway, because it's so fleeting and can change in an instant.
Yep.
Like this, we've got our Instagram account, and you've done little, every now and then you'll be like, oh, we've got 100 followers, we're successful. And then,
that's right.
Oh, we're nearly at 150, yay, we're successful. And really, I mean, what is that? It's not real success. It's not a measure of success. It's something that is so changeable. And it really doesn't impact whether or not we do what we do. We're doing what we do because we love it. Yeah. If we're setting out to define success, I don't know that is possible because, like you said, it's quite nebulous. And even failure is just, what do they say? It's not weakness, it's areas for improvement, Failure is not failure, it's just opportunity for developing resilience or something. It's such a horrible word. And it's, yeah, I think it takes a lot of courage to pursue what you love, regardless of how it's received.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So I feel successful when I have finished a short story, gotten it all together. You've edited it because you're a lovely, wonderful editor, and I've published it on a blog or just sort of shared it with a few people. I feel successful when I've done that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's received at the other end. I think most of the time people don't listen to them anyway, but I feel successful when I've gotten something together.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel successful when I've put together a really nice sentence.
Yeah.
And it sounds great. And I think that's why I get so, how would I say, mildly upset when I share my work with you and you pick holes in it.
I know. It's because I should sort of ease into the picking holes into it. It's wonderful.
No, but
have you thought about this, and this?
Yeah. Or like you said, it's important to get feedback because it does cause us to actually get better.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And you can sit in your own little bubble and feel very successful because you've written something that you feel is good, but it must be tested against how it's received as well.
Absolutely.
So, like you said, it's that balance.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, there we are. So we've defined success in a half an hour block.
Did we though?
Did we really? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Haven Writers Guild podcast today.
If you'd like more writing support, find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or on our website. Or you can email us directly at havenwritersguild@gmail.com.